Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel, or welcome back to my podcast if you're listening to this episode in the audio version only. My name is Rux, I'm a Western tropical astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Sagittarius coming up on the 14th of June at 11:51 GMT. The full moon is happening at 23 degrees, 24 minutes of Sagittarius. So those of you who have planets or angles around 23 degrees of mutable signs, you're going to feel this full moon the most. What are the mutable signs? Sagittarius, Gemini, Virgo, and Pisces. So it's you folks who need to pay the most attention to this video. Of course, the full moon happens somewhere in our chart for all of us. We all have all 12 zodiac signs in our natal chart, but we feel astrological events the most when they happen close to one of our natal planetary placements. When I say close to, I mean aspecting one of our natal planetary placements. I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we start talking astrology, let me mention a few important things. If you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is writteninthestars-astrology.com. You can go to the services section on my website and you will find there the various types of services that I offer. For the time being, I'm only taking bookings for the live Zoom consultation. I'm taking bookings for the month of July, and in the live Zoom consultation, we can analyze. It's obviously going to be me, but I will ask for your input as well. We will analyze your natal chart. We can analyze your natal chart. We can look into the year ahead. We can assess compatibility between you and someone else. We can look into your astrocartography. Whatever it is that you're interested in astrologically, that topic can be addressed in the 1-hour live Zoom consultation. Also, if you are interested in, let's say, one granular topic such as relationships, we can absolutely dive into that during the 1-hour live Zoom consultation. I do want to flag the following. There have been, especially on Instagram lately, some fake accounts, some accounts that are impersonating me and other astrologers, other spiritual practitioners. Please keep in mind that I will never send you a direct message on Instagram or on any other platform to tell you, oh, I want to do a reading for you. That will never happen. The only place on the internet where you can book a reading with me is on my website, which is again writteninthestars-astrology.com. Also, another important, piece of information to keep in mind. In my practice, I use the whole sign house system. And in the whole sign house system, the sign of the ascendant, for instance, let's say you have Cancer rising, you have a Cancer ascendant, the sign of Cancer will cover your entire first house. Leo will govern your second house of income, Virgo, your third house of communication, and so on. Let's talk astrology, people. So 14th of June at 11:51 GMT, we have a full moon in the sky in the sign of Sagittarius. The moon is in Sagittarius, the sun is in Gemini. Remember that a full moon is always an opposition between the sun and the moon. Symbolically speaking, a full moon represents a culmination. It represents a peak in activity. It represents a time of closure. It represents a time when we reap what we have sown. So things are coming to a head at a full moon. This full moon may reflect back to themes that came to your attention in December of 2021, especially around the 4th of December 2021, maybe the week before, the week after as well. That's when we experienced a new moon in Sagittarius. That was the symbolic beginning of a new cycle. The full moon in Sagittarius right now is the culmination of a cycle that kicked off 6 months ago in December of last year. So I would recommend having a think about what was going on in your life at the time, the first week of December in particular. The full moon in Sagittarius is going to be in a harmonious aspect with Saturn in Aquarius. However, it will tensely aspect Neptune in Pisces. So we have some stability, we have something culminating in our life where we reap the rewards of our long-term efforts. However, it may also feel at the same time, because of the tense aspect to Neptune, it may feel like we have given up on something and we feel a little bit heartbroken or a little bit disillusioned, or we may feel like we're kind of like leaving behind an old dream, an old vision, an old aspiration, again, at the time of this full moon. Not everything is exactly what it seems at the time of this full moon. Why? Because whenever Neptune comes in the mix, there is a certain degree of ambiguity that we have to deal with. There's also a feeling of someone being left behind, or of a specific group of people being left behind. So that's certainly very, very possible as well. There can also be a sense of clarity that we gain at the time of this full moon surrounding an area of pain or suffering, or surrounding something that caused a sense of disillusionment for us at some point in the past. It may be very clear to us at the time of this full moon what it is that we need to release, what it is that we need to surrender. And we, of course, have to think of the topics that Sagittarius and Gemini are associated with. The Sagittarius-Gemini axis in astrology is connected with learning. It is connected with education. It is connected with traveling, with transportation. It is connected with information and meaning. It is connected with logic and faith. So at the time of this full moon, collectively, we may feel like we need to leave behind something that we believed in, an old set of beliefs. It could also be a time when we complete an important chapter of our educational path, but we may not be super clear as to where we're going to head next. So there is a sense of our efforts being rewarded, but what now? Where are we headed from this point? Also, collectively, there could be news. There could be a spotlight being placed on matters linked with travel, transportation, education, the distribution of goods. There's definitely a spotlight being placed on international affairs and foreign affairs. There's also probably a lot of conversation, a lot of discussions that are likely to be held around victims, around maybe a class that is, or that feels oppressed, that feels marginalized, that has suffered in the past. Now, I really like the fact that Saturn is in a harmonious aspect with this full moon, because Saturn says, let's commit to something, or let's take responsibility for what's happening. Let's do something tangible about this. So even though there is some sort of like suffering that is being placed into the spotlight, Saturn in the sign of groups of people, in the sign of Aquarius, is saying, yes, we have to collectively take responsibility for this. We have to talk about it. We have to bring it out into the open. And by raising awareness, we can change beliefs, we can change mentalities, and so on. So that is what I like about this full moon. What I also like is the fact that Jupiter, the dispositor of the full moon, Jupiter is in Aries. And Aries is connected with new beginnings, with fighting, with asserting ourselves, with going after what we want. And Jupiter is going to be in a harmonious aspect with Mercury, which is the messenger. So there's probably news that give us a sense of this is what needs to be done in order for this type of suffering to be prevented in the future. Now let's talk about what this full moon is likely to bring at an individual level. I want to remind you folks, like the internet mom that I am, I want to remind you to listen to the update for your rising sign. If you do not know your rising sign, then I strongly recommend that you find out your time of birth and that you generate online your natal chart. You will need your time of birth for that, and then you can listen to the update for your rising sign, because it is likely to be a lot more aligned with what's happening in your life as we speak. If you don't know your rising sign, then of course you can listen to your sun sign, which is based on your date of birth, but I would strongly recommend that you listen to your rising sign if possible. My dear Aries, Aries sun and Aries rising. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, you have a full moon in Sagittarius, triggering your axis of learning and travel, harmoniously aspecting Saturn in your 11th house, but in a square to Neptune and Pisces in your 12th house. Okay, so Aries, please look back at what was going on in your life last year in December, around the 4th of December, especially when it comes to your education and also when it comes to matters connected with long distance travel, matters connected with legal matters and so on, with the legal judicial system, etc. There can be a feeling of that particular theme coming to a close or culminating at the time of this full moon, around the 14th of June. It feels like you are completing an educational chapter. So maybe you are presenting your thesis. Maybe you are graduating in some shape or form. Maybe you receive very positive, very good news connected with your admission to university for a master's degree, for a PhD, and so on. This could also be a time when you receive positive news connected with visas, travel related matters, your residence in a foreign land, in a foreign country. It could be a time when you physically travel and you could travel with friends. It could also be a time when you travel for some sort of group related project. Now, if you do travel around this time, my lovely Aries, please keep in mind that there can be delays, there can be disruption, there can be a sense of maybe having to pay a little bit more than you thought you would have to pay. There's a sense of confusion connected maybe with the schedule for travel. I would get to the airport super early if you can. I would make sure that you have all your paperwork, all your documents with you. Just putting it out there because something seems to be missing or something is a little bit unclear and you don't want to miss your flight just because, I don't know, you misplaced your passenger locator form or something like that. But all in all, good news at this time. Now, if you are a Taurus sun or a Taurus rising, the full moon in Sagittarius on the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, is activating your money axis. It is very nicely aspecting Saturn in your 10th house of career and public status, but it is forming a square with Neptune in your 11th house. Taurus, please look back at what was going on financially in your life last year in December, especially in the first week of December. There could be a similar theme that you have to deal with, or you could be completing something financially in June, around the 14th of June, that is linked with what was on your mind in December of last year. You could be receiving some sort of payment, some sort of bonus. You could be cashing in on an existing investment at this time. You could sell some of your assets at this time. You could find a buyer for some of your assets. You could also be receiving some good news connected with mortgage or with a loan. You could be receiving a sponsorship or some sort of external investment or gift. So you could very well be receiving a financial gift. Now, the only thing is, you may not be super clear as to what you want to do next with this money. It's like, okay, this is great, I have this money, but maybe it's not as much as I thought it would be. It's still good, but what am I going to do with it? I had other plans. I maybe need to reevaluate my plans and so on. You could have someone paying back to you a loan, a debt, basically. So you could have someone that you lent money to paying you back, but maybe they're saying, I have a little bit of money, I don't have all of it. So that could be a little bit disruptive in terms of your plans. This could also be a time when you realize that some of the people that you used to hang out with, you no longer resonate with them in terms of values, in terms of value system. You're a lot clearer on how your value system has evolved, but you realize, okay, what does that mean? I no longer want to be part of this tribe. I no longer want to be part of this peer group because I no longer adhere to the value system that they adhere to. And sometimes we have to do the hard thing and leave behind even good friends. It's like you're not headed in the same direction. By the way, folks, please forgive me if the video goes from like lighter to darker to lighter to darker, just because the sky is a little bit cloudy and then the sun comes out of the clouds and I've got the sun in my face and then the sun goes behind the clouds. So forgive the difference in luminosity. My dear Geminis, Gemini suns and Gemini risings. On the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, you have a full moon in your 7th house of relationships, harmoniously aspecting Saturn in the 9th house of foreign lands and foreign countries and belief systems, but in a tense aspect to Neptune and Pisces in your 10th house. My lovely, lovely Geminis, it feels, especially if you are in a relationship, it feels like this full moon is going to bring good news for your partner. So if you have a partner, then this full moon is a time of positive news for your significant other. It could be a time when you sign a deal or a contract with a business partner. That's also a possibility. It could be someone from abroad. It could be someone from an international market. It could be a partnership that requires you to travel a little bit. So very, very, very possible. Your partner could be experiencing the same thing, especially if you are in a relationship. If you are not in a relationship, my dear Geminis, and if you're open to it, then you could certainly meet someone, or you could go out into the world, attend, I don't know, like a movie night, or attend a dinner party, and you may feel like you're very connected with a potential partner. So certainly you can move forward in your relationship sector at this moment in time, dear Geminis. The thing is, you're a little bit unsure as to whether this person is someone who you see yourself with long term. That's what I'm thinking. If you are already in a relationship, another possibility, because remember that astrology does not predict exact much for manifestation. If you are already in a relationship, this could be a time when your partner has to travel, potentially abroad, to deal with something connected with their parents, I'd say. And that is Gemini. Now, if you are a Cancer sun or a Cancer rising, my fellow Cancerians, I'm a Cancer rising as well, for those of you who are new here to my channel. My fellow Cancerians, this full moon brings with it a culmination in your work life and in your health sector. It's very nicely aspected, this full moon, to Saturn in Aquarius. So it feels like you are completing a work chapter that gave you a lot of headaches. So you are in a much better place mentally, psychologically, after the completion of this cycle. The thing is, you're completing a work-related chapter, but you may not be fully completing it in the manner that you thought you would be completing it. So maybe you have to make some sort of compromise. Maybe you have to finish early. Maybe you have to move things around a little bit. You could also be finalizing your treatment for a health-related issue. Maybe it's costing you more than you thought it would cost, and maybe it's only part one of the treatment. So you've kind of like jumped through the first hoop, but there's another hoop that you need to jump through. There could also be some sort of event happening at work that you successfully deal with at this time, but that interferes a little bit, if you had certain plans in mind, that interferes a little bit with your travel related plans. I'd say be flexible, communicate very clearly, because there could be a little bit of confusion when it comes to communication, and don't be afraid to call things by their name. This could also be a time when you receive a new job offer. It could be a time when you decide to move to another team at work. That's certainly a possibility as well. Whatever you do job-wise, please read the legal contract very closely and very carefully, because there could be some clauses that are a bit ambiguous and that maybe cause headaches further down the line for you. Now, if you are a Leo sun or a Leo rising, 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, my dear Leos, we have a full moon triggering your 5th house, 11th house axis, harmoniously aspecting Saturn in Aquarius in your 7th house, but in a square to Neptune and Pisces in your 8th house of other people's money. So my lovely Leos, this is a time when you seem to be having a lot of fun, especially Leo risings. Together with a partner, you could be planning some sort of fun activity with your significant other. If you don't have a significant other, you could be going out into the world, getting together with friends, and feeling super connected with a potential partner. This could also be a time when you have a little bit too much fun and you overspend. Or it could be a time, especially for those of you who have children, it could be a time when your child experiences an important ending of a chapter in their life. And now you're thinking, okay, what next? What does this mean for me? What does this mean for my relationship with the other parent, let's say? It can be a very romantic time. It can also be a time when you have some difficult conversations with a significant other, especially, of course, if you are in a relationship. You're feeling vulnerable, my dear Leos, but I would recommend not shying away from vulnerability, because that can actually make the relationship a lot stronger. And if you feel the need to open up to your friends about something that's been going on in your relationship sector, I would do it, because they could offer important advice that can help you in the long term. It feels like your heart is being a little bit cut cut out into the open. It's part of life, isn't it, my dear Leos? Now, if you are a Virgo sun or a Virgo rising, my dear Virgos, on the 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, you have a full moon in your 4th house of home. It is activating both your 4th house of home and private life and your 10th house of career, public status, and public reputation. I do recommend Virgos looking back at what was going on in your home and family life last year in December, especially in the first week of December, because this full moon may feel like a continuation of the themes or the events that came up to your attention last year in December. This full moon is very nicely aspected to Saturn and Aquarius in your 6th house. So it feels like the efforts and the work that you've been putting into a home-related matter, they're finally paying off. You are finalizing, you are completing a series of strenuous efforts, possibly, when it comes to your home life, when it comes to your private life, and so on. Some of you Virgos might move into a new house at this time. Some of you might relocate. Some of you might finalize renovations in the house. Finally. However, this full moon is in a tense aspect to Neptune and Pisces in your 7th house of relationships. It feels like either your partner, if you are in a relationship, or someone from the outside is criticizing maybe some of the work that you have done at home, or maybe they don't like it that much, or maybe they feel a little bit disenchanted, disappointed, disillusioned with the end result. That's very, very possible. This could also be a time, especially if you're in a relationship, when your partner experiences some sort of closure or ending at work. So maybe they're leaving their job, maybe they're leaving behind a certain professional path, maybe they're completing an important project at work, but it feels like a bittersweet ending, I dare say. It could also be a time when you have some sort of public announcement to make to the outside world about something that's been happening in your life behind the scenes, in private. Also, if a parent was struggling with something health related, my dear Virgos, it's probably coming to a close, it's probably coming to an end, but I want to say that the end is okay, but maybe not great. It could have been better. So there is a bit of a bittersweet feeling to this full moon. Now, if you are a Libra sun or a Libra rising, my dear Libras, 3 days before, 3 days after the 14th of June, you are probably going to be feeling the influence of this full moon activating your axis of learning, studies, education, traveling, transportation. Some of you Libras, especially Libra risings, might buy a new car or might decide to get rid of an old car. This could be a time when you take some sort of exam. This could be a time when you have to travel for whatever reason to see a sibling or to get together with a sibling. It could be a time when you wrap up a course or a class. It could be a time when you get the results for some sort of exam that you took a while back. Whatever it is educationally, if this full moon puts the spotlight on your education, which it is likely to do, it could feel very much linked to something that was on your mind educationally, also in the first week of December of last year. If you have siblings in particular, they may struggle a little bit with their health around this time. So maybe you feel like you have to travel to boost their morale, as they say. If you are traveling for pleasure around this time, you're probably going to enjoy it. But at the same time, there is a bit of an issue potentially with something health related. So I'm thinking if you're traveling, be careful what you eat. Be careful where you drink water from. There could be a challenge with food or food poisoning. It's not mandatory, of course, because astrology does not predict exact mature manifestation. But what I'm saying is don't let something of a health-related issue get in the way of you enjoying a great time, I don't know, traveling or something of that type. If you are a Scorpio sun or a Scorpio rising, 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, you are experiencing a full moon in your second house of income. It's very nicely aspected to Saturn and Aquarius in your fourth house of home, but it is in a square with Neptune and Pisces in your fifth house. My lovely Scorpios, this full moon is bringing to a close, symbolically speaking, probably some sort of financial matter that was also on your mind last year in December. So it's news connected with your finances. You're probably getting paid, but maybe you're not getting paid as much as you wanted to get paid. You are probably directing a lot of your resources, a lot of your money towards something home related. You are proud of yourself for that, but at the same time, it's costing you so much, I feel, that it's kind of like taking away some of the resources that maybe you had allocated to fun times or to fun activities, to something that you enjoy doing. You could also be hearing good news connected with your investments, I would say, but maybe, again, maybe it's not exactly as much as you thought you would get out of it. Nevertheless, take your wins, because this does feel like a win. So I want you to take it as a win, even though, of course, in an ideal world, it could have been better. Everything in an ideal world could be better. At the same time, things could also go worse. So take this as a victory, my lovely Scorpios. Now, if you are a Sagittarius sun or a Sagittarius rising, you folks are the stars of this full moon. You're in the spotlight. Everyone's interested in you. Everyone wants to hear about your life. Everyone is saying, what are you up to? Where are you headed from here? This full moon seems to be bringing to a close a personal chapter of growth, most likely, that you initiated probably last year in December, around the 4th of December, week before, week after. I'm liking this full moon because it feels like you know who you are a lot better now. You have reached a higher degree of self-awareness. You are proud of who you have become. You also know who you don't want to be anymore. You could be drawing a line, you could be drawing a clear boundary and saying to your partner or to a family member, you could be saying, you know what, I'm not taking this anymore. Or you can't tell me who I am anymore. You seem to have an epiphany also about where you want your life to be headed to next. So there's greater clarity in terms of your life direction. Now, this greater clarity in terms of your life direction might also involve leaving behind an old home, an old living situation, saying goodbye to maybe some of the people that you used to live with, maybe saying goodbye to an old business partner or an old romantic partner. I know I mentioned this word so many times that I'm going to mention it again because it is so appropriate. It feels bittersweet. It's like, I know who I am. I'm thinking clearly, and I know I no longer resonate with you, be it a partner, be it a roommate, be it someone that you spent a lot of time with in your private life. I dare say. If you're in a relationship, this could also be a time when you realize, okay, if I want to move this relationship forward, I'm gonna have to commit to the next step, the next level of where this relationship can be taken. And that may involve some changes in your living situation. So maybe your partner is saying, let's move in together. And you're like, okay, but what does that mean for me? I'm leaving behind my home. I'm leaving behind some old family members. You're going to have to make a judgment call at this time. I will say that your logical, rational mind is functioning crystal clear, Sagittarius. Now, if you are a Capricorn sun or a Capricorn rising, 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, you are experiencing a full moon in your 12th house. It's triggering your axis of service and health, this full moon. It is a time when you probably realize that you have to rest. It is a time when you feel probably a little bit exhausted, my dear Capricorns. So I would recommend, if you can, taking some time off, especially Capricorn risings. It could be a time when something that was going on behind the scenes at work comes to your conscious attention. It could be a time when you announce your coworkers, I'm leaving. I am out of here. It could be a time also when a work-related project is coming to a close, is coming to an end. It has been causing quite a bit of turmoil for you from a mental health perspective. You are happy to see it out of your life. It's not exactly turning out how you thought it would turn out. There's probably still some miscommunication with colleagues, with clients, with coworkers, with stakeholders. But at the same time, you've got to realize that sometimes things will just have to be good enough. Not everything that you put out there into the world, not even work-wise, not everything is going to be to this super high standard, because it does not all depend upon you. So in a way, at this point in time, you're called to recognize that surrendering is not defeat. Surrendering is a good judgment call sometimes, especially work-wise. Health-wise, I gotta say, I see you being depleted. So take some time to rest, take some time off. Don't push yourself too much, because your body could suffer and your mental health could suffer. So know when to stop, Capricorns. If you are an Aquarius sun or an Aquarius rising, 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after Aquarius, this full moon is activating your 11th house. It's forming a harmonious aspect to Saturn in your first house of identity. It's in a square to Neptune in Pisces in your second house. So this full moon seems to bring to a close, to an end, maybe a group project that you kicked off or that was on your mind in December of last year. You are proud to have completed this, to have finalized this in collaboration with someone else, most likely, but you don't necessarily seem to be very satisfied with the amount of money that you made. Maybe you realize, I've spent so much time, I've put so much heart, so much energy into this, and I only get paid a fraction. So I gotta say, financially, I don't necessarily see you being super over the roof, but you do seem to feel proud of yourself for having had the discipline, the self-control, for having pushed yourself to wrap this up, because it wasn't easy. This could also be a time when you say yes to some sort of collaboration with a group of people, but the whole landscape around how much you're going to get paid is not crystal clear. You're not very clear on how much money you're going to make. I'd recommend sitting down and being very direct and blunt and straightforward. Jupiter, the ruler of this, the dispositor of this full moon, is in your third house of communication. If there are any sort of ambiguities around how much money you are going to end up with, I would call them out. I would be like, let's get it in writing. Let's discuss from the very beginning, because if you don't talk it through, then there's probably going to be a feeling of disappointment, or maybe even of being taken a little bit advantage of. So you don't want to end up in that place. This could also be a time when you get together with friends. I would say, my lovely Aquarius, it is a time of socialization. It is a time of going out into the world. It is a time when you feel like you can treat yourself to some time off or to some enjoyable activities, because you have worked very hard for it. However, if you are involved in social activities around this time, it's probably going to cost you. So it may leave you a little bit out of pocket, I will say. And last but not least, my dear Pisces, Pisces suns and Pisces risings. 14th of June, 3 days before, 3 days after, you're experiencing a full moon in your 10th house of career. It's very nicely aspected to Saturn and Aquarius in your 12th house. My dear Pisces, it feels like you have some sort of announcement to make to your boss at this time. It could also be a time when you wrap up a project with a lot of exposure. in your professional life. It is a time when you're going out into the world. People are watching you, people are looking up to you, they're admiring you, even if you're not in work. It feels like your reputation is on your mind at this point in time. You could be getting a promotion. You could be getting a big shout out in the world, career-wise. You could also decide to leave behind an old industry at this time. It could also be a time when your status is changing out into the world. Maybe as a result of a promotion, maybe as a result of a change in your relationship status, maybe as a result of what's happening in your home and family life. This full moon is in a tense aspect to Neptune in your first house. Whatever is happening for you professionally or in terms of your status and your reputation, it is a little bit asking you to surrender an old part of your identity, an old way of defining yourself. You could also be feeling a bit confused or not very clear as to who, let's say, who you're going to become in the long run. Maybe you had a clear kind of like tight grip on who you wanted to be long term. Now it's like, okay, this is great. This is a win. I'm leaving behind an old job. I'm getting a promotion or I'm changing my status. But who do I want to be moving forward? You could also be feeling quite tired physically because there's a lot of people that need your input, your energy, your attention, especially mental attention, work-wise and home and family-wise at this time. And physically, you're like, oh my God, I just need to rest a little bit. I just need to spend some time on my own. So don't be afraid to say, listen, I'm gonna go for like a walk by myself, or I'm going to spend, Sunday in bed or something like that, because you need that to reset yourself. You need that to recharge your batteries, my dear Pisces. And that is your full moon update. Don't forget that if you want to work with me, you can find me on my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. I'm currently taking bookings for live Zoom consultations for live readings in July. If you're not following me on Instagram, my Instagram handle is @Rux. So that is RUX Unbelievable, Rux Unbelievable in one word. And please keep us updated. Please keep us up to speed with what's going on in your life in the week ahead. So at the time of the full moon. Even if I don't respond to all comments, I do read them all, and I also think it's super interesting to see how the energies play out in your life. Because remember, astrology is only archetypally predictive. We have the free will to decide how we act or how we react to what is happening in our life. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.